All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is the 6th installment of Did Man Get Here by Evolution or by Creation? And so far, it does not seem to be the latter. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. And joining me is my host and co-host, the wonderful Peter. Welcome. Hello. Glad to have you back. So, it's okay. The Law of Monopoly. No. No monopolies. Only monophylies and paraphylies and polyphylies. Just kidding. None of those either. Only monophyly, because cladistics only works with monophyly. You can't be naming creatures which don't all share ancestors and descendants as some clade. Unless you get to really recent organisms, then you get problems because the species is then paraphyletic at that point, because some of its descendants have speciated. But of course, taxonomy is largely arbitrary anyways. It's not about having a single system which encompasses everything. It's about having essentially road signs that work well enough. So, anyway. All right. So last time we finished with our chapter on the fossil record, which was abysmal, as all the other chapters have been. Now we're on to chapter 5. Chapter 5 is the fundamental law of all living things. Are you ready, Peter? Oh my goodness, there you go. All right. So, there exists a law among all living things that has no exception, a law that science has clearly verified, as noted by Scientific American of December 1966. Quote, living things are enormously diverse in form, but form is remarkably constant within any given line of descent. Pigs remain pigs and oak trees remain oak trees generation after generation. The law involved here is mentioned in the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. There it states, quote, and the earth began to put forth grass, vegetation bearing seed according to its kind, and trees yielding fruit, the seed of which is in according to its kind. Great sea monsters and every living soul that moves about, which the waters swarmed forth according to their kinds, and every winged flying creature according to its kind, the wild beast of the earth according to its kind, the domestic animal according to its kind, and every moving animal of the ground according to its kind. Genesis 1:12, 21, and 25. The fixity of basic kinds of living things, as stated here, is an unchangeable law on Earth. That is just what science has found, that there are basic animal and plant groupings, and between these there are no links. Each group multiplies and has offspring within itself, but cannot reproduce when crossed with other major groups. All right, so let's talk about that. So, in a broad sense, the Bible is correct here. Organisms do reproduce according to their kind, if we're using the term kind to mean clade. Because you can never give birth to a descendant who is not your descendant. That simply isn't possible. And evolution kind of runs on that fact, that you can't give birth to your grandparents.
Well,
unless you're in Alabama,
or you're a Christian on YouTube, because I don't have it right now, but I do have the soundbite of a Christian YouTuber saying that your descendants are your ancestors. Not kidding. I asked him 2 or 3 times.
That doesn't fork.
I asked him a couple of times whether or not he was convinced that was a thing, and he kept confirming that that was the case. So I'm not kidding.
Well, I don't know how to respond to that.
No, I
at
also
any rate,
I also didn't. By the way, I have to apologize. I had the wrong mic. So I have two microphones: a producer mic where only Jackson can hear me, and the mic to go on screen. And I forgot to switch over. So during the intro, no one heard me, which is probably just for the better. So no worries.
okay. So, so the law of monophyly, which I have problems with. Anytime that someone uses the term law in biology, I have problems because there are lots of laws that can actually be broken if you try hard enough. It's not like the law of gravity. What is it? 1 over the square of the distance or whatever, or square of the something like that. I think 1 over square of the distance. Anyways, it's not like that. It's not like you're describing this immutable relationship that, you know, it doesn't change whether you're here or you're in the next galaxy or whatever. It's the same regardless. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, speed of light's the same everywhere, all that sort of stuff. Well, in biology, things are a lot more messy and complicated. So we have laws like the law of independent assortment. So when you have when meiosis is happening, when you have the formation of gametes, you're only going to get half of your genetic set in one, half of your genome in one, and then the other half in your half of your chromosomes are going in the first daughter cell, and then the other half are going in the other daughter cell. And so you have 1, which then becomes 2, and then you have 4. So, and then those 4 are all also haploid because you have your chromosomes. So you line up, it's a pair, then you split. So 1 goes to each, and then because your chromosomes are 2 identical halves, you split that in half, and then so you get they are originally identical halves, but you can also do recombination, which then swaps out segments of your chromosomes, and then as a result you get non clonal segments. So anyway, the point is that this doesn't always happen. You can have problems in this process where instead of everything being sorted independently, you accidentally get like extra chromosomes in one of your gametes, or you are, missing out chromosomes in one of your gametes. So there's the way it's supposed to happen, where you get this like fair split basically, but that doesn't always happen. You can have aneuploidy or triploidy or what have you. So it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not really a law. There's also one, the law of what I always forget the name of it. It's a law. It's It's an idea that basically says you can't reverse your evolution. When you have a certain trajectory, you can't reverse that trajectory. I can never. Will someone in the chat, in the side chat, tell me what the name is, because I cannot remember. Oh, also, I forgot to say hello, everyone, in the side chat. I forgot to say hello to everyone. We have Vandalia and Mikeman and Smitty and Creo Debunk and Erlen Bailey, Snorefoot, Pomodorino, Cygart. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have all of you here. If someone can remind me what the name of that law is that says you can't reverse your trajectory, then I would be eternally grateful. But anyways, the point is,
how would that even work? So reversing your trajectory, that means that you're going to give birth to your ancestors.
No, if you think about a gene, and you have mutations in this gene, what is the likelihood that you basically revert those mutations to their original form? You basically undo all of your mutations in a particular gene. It's exceedingly unlikely. Exceedingly. Dalo's law. Dalo's law of irreversibility. That's what it is. I don't know if anybody put that in the side chat, but I just remembered. Oh, someone
Yeah.
did. Muse to death, said Dollars Law. Yep. Thank you. Appreciate. Josiah Hansen, hello. Yes. So again, not really a law, just kind of a broad, like, it technically you can reverse like one mutation. I mean, if you think about it, there are only 4 nucleotides, right, in DNA. And so the odds that you replace an adenine with, another adenine is 1 in 4, right? 25%. So that's pretty good chance. So, but then, or replacing it with, you replace it with a thymine, right? There's a 1/4 chance that you knock out that adenine, replace it with a thymine, and then there's a 1/4 chance that, or well, then again, it's 1 in 4 that you could knock out that thymine and replace it with another adenine. So again, if you multiply those, that's 1/4 times 1/4, which is 1/8. I don't remember what the percent for that is. What is it? Is it 12.5? I think 12.5%. But so not super unlikely. It's possible, but if you do more than one, if you start getting a bunch of them and you have lots of mutations when you're born, then rather quickly it becomes pretty unlikely that you're going to essentially unmutate those regions. It becomes very, very unlikely. In this case, they're talking about the law of monophyly. So as we were saying, so I guess monophyly is technically always true, because I was thinking horizontal gene transfer, but even if you do horizontal gene transfer, it's still your descendants. So I guess this might be your only example of like a true law. You can't give birth to non-descendants, basically. And so in that sense, I agree. We are, but at the same time, though, you have to say we're in the same kind as chimpanzees and gorillas and orangutans. We're all in the hominoid kind, or the hominid in that case. Then you add gibbons and it's the hominoid kind. We're in the the vertebrate kind, the tetrapod kind, the eukaryote kind, as Aaron had to beat into Kent Hovind's head.
So it says here that this is something that I literally hear every day. Pigs remain pigs and oak trees remain oak trees, generation after generation. Yes, which is literally why we are still apes, which is literally why we are still reptiles, why we are fish, and why we are eukaryotes.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's the part they don't get. Once you have a particular ancestor, you're still part of that ancestor's tree. You will never be able to say, okay, I'm going to switch my mom and dad, and I biologically came from this couple. That's not going to happen. So it is literally that easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the problem is they sort of swap out like the clade names for like animal names, for instance. And so that starts kind of messing with the thing. Like when Ken Hovind says, "Oh, you believe you came from a bacteria?" No, eukaryotes never evolved from bacteria. Bacteria is a separate clade that shares a common ancestor with eukarya. We are not. Or another one they say is oh, so you're also prokaryotes. No, prokarya is not a clade. Prokarya is just a description of 2 domains of life, the archaea and the bacteria. So we are descended from archaeans, because archaea is paraphyletic now. It's not monophyletic anymore, which means it has to be renamed. Yay! Because it turns out that the Asgard archaeota are more closely related to us than they are to other archaeans. And there's like a couple other groups which are also more closely related to us than they are to the true archaeans. So that has to be changed.
So I don't know who named that or who stole what from whom. Every time you say Asgard, I'm going back to Stargate SG-1, the little gray aliens, the most popular form of aliens. Those were the Asgard. So
yeah,
it's
Peter, I'm on a different computer. Can you put up a comment for me?
I can put up a comment.
Can you put up Sigart? When I told Hovind that nothing gives birth to anything else, and that's a requirement for evolution, he didn't believe me. Exactly right.
Yes.
Hovind is especially dense. Well, I mean,
I think
it's Hovind.
we've all told Hovind that. I think you told him that. I told him that. Yeah.
Everybody and their grandma has told Hovind this at this point.
Yes.
He is paid to not understand, and we have to realize that. He's paid to not understand.
$2 million a year, not to be snuffed at.
Yeah. So at any rate, yeah, you can pull it down now.
Okay. Well, if you want me to pull up a comment, just put it in the private chat, and I'll pick it up. If you copy it,
we needed bacteria for our evolution. We are part bacteria. Yes, that's true. We are part bacteria because our mitochondria are bacteria that we have, our cells have enslaved. Someone else put, where was it? Smitty says, if you named both fungus and bacteria as ancestral to lichens. Again, lichen is not a real, I don't think lichen is a real designation, right? I don't think it is. It's because that's what it is. It's a symbiotic relationship between a fungus and an algae or bacterium. And weirdly enough, the lichen, so that combination, that symbiotic relationship, is called the lichen, and it has a taxonomic name. It has a binomial nomenclature. But what's interesting now researchers have realized is it's not just a fungus and an algae. It's a fungus and algae and several different bacteria that all form this one relationship together. So how the heck do you call that, But anyway, we are 80% bacteria. Yeah, absolutely. Eukaryotes are not descended from bacteria. We are descended from archaea. Bacteria is sister to archaea, bacteria is sister to archaea plus eukarya. So we nest within archaea. Anyway, okay, back to the book. Quote, but when the Bible speaks of God as creating various kinds of life on Earth, it does not mean every single species known to man. In the system of nomenclature used in the life sciences, individual organisms very closely related are considered a species. One or more related species make up a genus. A family is a group of genera, the plural genus. An example of that is the cat family, Felidae. One genus of this family is Felis, which includes the tiger, lion, house cat, and others, all separate species within the genus. Another genus of the cat family is the lynx, which includes the bobcat. Further classification upward into order, class, and then phylum follow. Which of all these classifications commonly used today is the equivalent of the genus's kind? The Bible does not say, but the kind to which it refers is large enough to allow for great variety within, but not for interbreeding with other kinds. Observed facts prove this to be so. That is why there are no transitional stages between major groups, either in the fossil record or among living things today. A century of careful research, careful investigation in this matter of classification has revealed that any new types that spring up are not really new, but are merely varieties within the basic Genesis kinds already existing. For the sake of discussion, let us refer to the family classification. All in the cat family remain always cats in the fossil form or those living today. There is great variety in the cat family: lions, tigers, leopards, bobcats, house cats, and so forth, but they always remain cats. All in the dog family have always remained in that family, again allowing for great variety, such as the domestic dogs, jackals, wolves, foxes, and others. Okay. So again, they're lying about transitional fossils. We do have lots of them. Answers in Genesis, in case you guys are unfamiliar, also equates kind to the family level. Whoa! It's almost like this argument's been around since the 60s. and they're using no better research today than they were then. Crazy world. So what they're also going to pull up, I am predicting, is they're going to say everything within the family can interbreed and reproduce. Well, actually, foxes are also in the dog kind, Canidae, or the family, and foxes cannot reproduce with wolves. So that classification scheme is done. It's over. Your argument is kaput. Also, llamas and alpacas and vicuñas do not all mate under normal circumstances in the wild. Can you make them? Sure, you can inseminate a llama or a vicuña, but first, why? Second, that it's not happening in nature, so why does it matter? It also says new types that spring up are not really new, but are merely existing varieties. Wouldn't you know? Evolutionists believe that too. Tiktaalik was not something new that just popped magically into existence.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lobe-finned fish, which descended from a long line of lobe-finned fish. So, wouldn't you know? We all agree. How about that? Creationists and evolutionists coming together.
Yeah. And in the family, which we don't use anymore, in the family Felis, there are also different species that cannot interbreed. So it doesn't work that way.
Yes. Oh, PZ says Behe also pegs kinds to families. Yes. Yes. Oh, and also Sai says the current AIG view is that the varieties of cats arose from, drumroll, evolution by natural selection. I kid you not. A different kind of evolution and very, very fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Exactly right. The explanation of the fall. Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah. So the funny thing is, Behe, Michael Behe, who is one of the main guys at the Discovery Institute, he argued in Darwin's Black Box, which was one of his major books that still gets cited to this day, that universal common ancestry is true, and that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. So he argued that back then. I think it was in the 90s when that came out, and creationists still cite his book because that's where he argues that the flagellum couldn't possibly have evolved.
Mm-hmm.
So, well.
Which is still argued today.
Yeah.
I think it was on Rebecca's channel where he said that possibly could never have evolved, and I said that's not only disproven in science but also in a court of law. And the only thing she said back then was, "If science decided in a court of law," and I said no, but dishonesty is. And so
yeah. I love what I love about that. Is Kent Hovind always says you couldn't prove evolution in a court of law.
Yeah.
It's been done.
Yes,
many times over.
Not just once.
Yeah, Kitzmiller Dover, Freiler v. Tangipahoa, Edwards v. Aguillard, which all of which may be on the chopping block in the near future, but at any rate,
let's not talk about that. Let's not make it more depressing than it actually is. I mean,
yeah, which is hard, but yes.
If we're going to touch on that, we need 3 or 4 hours before we even can get back to the book.
3 or 4 hours, lots of alcohol. Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I still have my 4.5 liter bottle of whiskey here, so I could make that, and then be hauled off to hospital right after the show with alcohol poisoning. But I mean, I could.
Yes. All right. Quote, so when we look at the cat family or the dog family and see various sizes, shapes, and colors, this is not organic evolution, but merely a variety within a basic genus kind. There is great diversity within a kind, and the kinds have never and do not mix. Not a single shred of evidence indicates that the basic kinds ever evolved from a common ancestor. There are no facts from which to conclude that they did as evolution claims. Even with the classification listed lower than family, and that is genus, there are marked differences, and even of species. Professor Dobzhansky comments, quote, no individual has ever been seen about which there could be a doubt as to whether it belongs to the species of cats, Felis domestica, or to the species of lions, Felis leo. Felis leo, that's interesting. Okay. The two species are discrete because of the absence of intermediates. Therefore, one may safely affirm that any cat is different from any lion. What has been said above with respect to the species Felis domestica and Felis leo holds for innumerable other pairs of species. Discrete groups are encountered among animals, as well as plants, among structurally simple, as well as among very complex ones. Formation of discrete groups is so nearly universal that it must be regarded as a fundamental characteristic of organic diversity. Close quote. So while it cannot be said with certainty which modern classification is the same as the genus kind, it was a category that had definite physiological differences that made it impossible for the germ cells of one to unite with the germ cells of another kind and produce offspring. Thus, the amoeba stayed forever an amoeba, a fly stayed forever a fly, and an ape stayed forever an ape. Hey, we agree. That these are the facts, science is verified. Professor of zoology Richard B. Goldschmidt, a famous evolutionist, once said in his book, The Material Basis of Evolution, quote, the facts fail to give any information regarding the origin of actual species, not to mention higher categories, close quote. He added, quote, nowhere have the limits of the species been transgressed, and these limits are separated from the limits of the next good species by the unbridged gap, sorry. I can read, I swear. Which also includes sterility, apparently not. Close quote. Okay. All right, several things. I want to point out that even if there are kinds have still crossbred with each other. They have shared DNA across kind barriers. You know how we know? That's what bacteria do.
Mm-hmm.
So even if kinds exist, unless all of bacteria is one kind, right? Although we have virus DNA, so that still you have, if you want to say all viruses are one kind, which again doesn't make any sense at all. But even if you were to say that, we have virus DNA within us, so still kinds have been crossed. What else? Wasps. There are wasps that have transferred their genetic material to caterpillars. So there are parasitic wasps, and what they do or parasitoid wasps. What they do is they inject their eggs into caterpillars, and the caterpillar basically broods those eggs in its body unintentionally. I could probably make a joke there, but we're not going to go there right now. The caterpillar is forced to give birth to the wasp's offspring. But another thing that happens is the caterpillar is injected with a virus. It's called a breakovirus. Well, in some groups, there's also ichnoviruses. But these viruses, what they do is they destroy the caterpillar's immune system. So basically, it can't destroy the eggs. So it is forced to give birth. I hope that sounds as horrible as it is. And so the interesting thing is, though, that some of these caterpillars have actually survived the encounter, and the DNA from the wasp entered their gametes. And so now there are caterpillars, there are moths and butterfly species that have wasp DNA in them because they managed to survive that encounter, which is kind of cool. But again, the point is, if you want to classify, wasps of the family Ichneumonidae as their own family, then that's cross-kind contamination, right?
Yep.
So even if you believe that kinds exist, we could agree kinds exist. It still doesn't help your argument. So Anyway,
I want to make a comment. So we in the side chat we have Flog Life Aboard, and they say common ancestry is a failed hypothesis. So I'd love to see a brother and a sister that don't have the same parents.
right.
If you can show me that.
I mean, common ancestry failed, so apparently a brother and sister have never come from the same mother.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
And your cousins didn't come from the same grandparents. I want to see that.
Star Soccer's Institute says the DNA replication machinery is not homologous in the 3 domains of life. You are correct. That is true. I think we discussed that a couple episodes ago. But yeah, that's true. So, yeah. All right. But eukaryotes get their replication machinery from archaeans. We have the same system that they do, but it's different from bacteria. They evolved this independently. One thing I want to mention, which I find interesting, is he calls the lion Felis leo instead of Panthera leo, which is the current designation for lions. Okay. Also, what Dobzhansky is saying here is he is referring to the fact that species do not blend into each other, which for most species that's true. For most species, there isn't a bunch of blends today that separate them, right? There isn't like a series of extant, organisms that blur the line between chimp and human. There are in the fossil record, right? The further you go back in our fossil record, the more we look like the more in common we have with chimps. But also, chimps don't really have a good fossil record, but our skull becomes more prognathic. Our teeth are larger, more like that of chimps. Our body, our skeleton is less gracile. It's more robust. So and we walk quadrupedally rather than bipedally. So, and
if people want to see that in depth, then they can look for the debate that Bill Ludlow had with Kent Hovind. I still think that when it comes to common ancestry with the great apes, that was one of the better debate. He came really prepared, and he had it all the skulls nicely lined up. Also, I want to do a shout out because more recently, Erica, by the way, congratulations on getting married, Erica.
Oh yes, congratulations to Erica. Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
She also tried to convince Sir Hovind of the same thing, and probably money's more important than honesty. Let's just say.
Yeah. I do also have to say,
PZ says, don't you know that Kent won all of his debates? Yeah. Well,
right. Absolutely.
In all honesty, I have seen him win debates against atheists, and it's that.
Sure. I mean, if we're counting as like he's better at speaking fast, then sure, I can. He's better at putting out.
Derailing the topic
faster than than his opponent can correct. So I'll give you that. Vlog Liveaboard says sequences of glycolytic enzymes differ between archaea and bacteria and eukaryotes. Cool. Bacteria and archaea differ in their chemistry of their membrane lipids. Nobody is using membrane phospholipids to define or to argue for common ancestry between archaea and bacteria. Try again. He keeps pointing to things which are different between bacteria and archaea, things that are well known. So, okay. And yes, PZ says he won the debate we never had. That's right. So Hovind claims to have had a debate with PZ that didn't happen, and he says he won that debate. So
yes, he claimed.
Congratulations, I guess.
He claimed that, and then people started pointed it out to him that he never debated PZ, and then he said, "Well, I do so many
Yeah.
debates, I can't recall." You know someone's name, but you can't recall if you've ever talked to them. That I don't believe. If I know your name,
Yeah.
I definitely know whether or not I actually ever talked to you. That's not that hard.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, Dobzhansky here is talking about the fact that species tend to be discrete entities, and again, tend to be. It's not always the case. Species complexes and aggregates exist. We talked about ring species last time, so that's an example where that's not the case. But typically, it is the case. Typically, species are discrete things, unless they're super close. Then it can be hard, and the lines kind of blur. But so I don't disagree with Dobzhansky here, but he's being quote mined for an argument he's certainly not making.
One other thing, Vandalia says, can totally kick Jackson's butt. So there's a nice story to when Jackson first debated Hovind. He did that on his phone. He called in.
Yes, I did.
And that was,
right.
I think, in three or four episodes where that was recorded.
Yeah, 3. Yeah.
And after that debate, Kent started blaming Jackson for taking up all the time. To which Jackson asked a friend to see whether or not it could be timed. Well, so that particular friend was me. Turns out that Hovind was talking more than 2/3 of the time, and Jackson only less than 1/3 of the time. So yeah.
And I was also a meek college student back then.
And
we had a so
it was your first debate, right? That was your first debate.
It was.
Yes.
And I'll grant he did that. I should have prepared. And I really didn't prepare at all. I think you told me you knew his phone number, and I was like, "Can I call him?"
Yeah.
But I wasn't. I hadn't like reviewed his shtick or anything. I did the best I could at the time. But then we did have a debate. We had a formal debate on modern day debate, like a couple of years later, and I absolutely destroyed him, and it was hilarious. And my favorite part of that debate was when, because I watched a bunch of his videos in preparation for that, and I said, "Why do you think mammoths were not Arctic animals?" And he said, "Well, mammoths don't have sebaceous glands." It took me 10 seconds to find a paper saying that mammoths have been found with sebaceous glands. And this paper was from years ago. He never bothered to look it up. I called him on the spot, and chef's kiss.
And in all honesty, so that was your first debate. It was also when you had made a few pre-recorded videos, which is always a lot easier than speaking live to someone that is going to be broadcasted or is going to be a live broadcast even. And I think if you consider all of these things and you look at that debate, then you did pretty good. You at several times you held his feet to the fire, which he doesn't like, and then immediately starts to waffle and to get everything in a different direction. And the only thing that I want to point out, his debating skills are good. I'm not going to deny that. So yes, he may win debates. It still doesn't mean that what he's saying is true.
Right. Exactly.
And that's why I hate debates and prefer to have a conversation in which you can counter things, because otherwise he's just going to run off and he's going to give you so many points that there's no way you can refute him, and it will look like he won. And that's it.
Right. The last thing I want to point out on this section was they mentioned, or the book cites Richard Goldschmidt. Goldschmidt was writing in like the 40s when most of what we know about speciation was unknown, and he argued for this thing called macromutationism, which is basically where you have one mutation which turns like a species into a parent gives birth to an offspring who's like a member of a different species. And so that's not typically how speciation works. It is in some organisms, but not usually. So, and then whatever. I'll do it later. Deal with it later. So that's all that for that one. Hybrids is a pretty short.
Yeah, I want to respond to someone in the side chat. Hiketi, if I pronounce that correctly, said then Kent must have paid that 5-year-old. Apparently, Kent doesn't pay that well, which is why if you follow Vice Rhino, I don't know which show it was in, but Kent did his normal shtick by asking a 5-year-old live on camera whether or not they could point out the odd one out. And the 5-year-old disproved Kent in that particular thing. So, yeah, that's what you get if you don't pay your 5-year-olds. You can tell people a 5-year-old will know, but if you then ask one who's in the room, they're going to school you, which is brilliant.
Okay. Again, this guy vlog liveaboard. Everyone knows that the glycerol in the cell membrane of archaea and bacteria is different. Everyone knows that. You are not telling us anything we don't know. No one is using cell membranes to argue for universal common ancestry. Try again. Good Lord. Also, PZ, I'm giving you a link to the show if you want to jump in. Feel free. Because I see you're in there. Please, vlog, creationist dude, come on. Come up with an actual argument, please. Thank you. Okay, hybrids. Good Lord. I mean, like, it's a whole thing that Nick Lane talks about in The Vital Question. Like, quote, however, are not hybrids proof of the crossing of different Genesis kinds? Of hybrids, biology for today states, quote, in the process of hybridization, two different species of the same genus, in most cases, are crossed in order to combine the good qualities of both. Frequently, the new hybrid is stronger than either parent. Sometimes the offspring are sterile and require constant hybridizing, close quote. Note the point that hybrids come from living things closely related to begin with, which means they are likely the same in the Genesis kind all the time. Most of these hybrids are sterile and in the free state usually do not even breed. Yeah. And with those that may be fertile, further hybridizing reaches a final limit, sterility. Hence, variability, although great, is definitely limited within a kind, not unlimited as evolutionists assume. This limitation can be seen in working with hybrid corn. For several decades, phenomenal progress was made in raising high-yield hybrid corn, but then the hybrid corn seed could not be significantly improved in yield because all the factors for improving this particular characteristic had been utilized. Also, no matter what was done to that corn, it always remained corn. It did not and cannot change into some other kind of plant. All the changes it ever experiences will be made within its basic kind. This is also true of animal hybrids. Efforts to change them indefinitely will always prove futile, as they soon reach the boundary of sterility, which boundary cannot be crossed. This keeps basic kinds always separate. Close quote. And we have a PZ in the video. Hello.
Hello.
Oh. How are you on this wonderful day?
I am hot, but otherwise pretty good.
Oh my god. Bruh.
What?
Vlog. Drop the phospholipid thing. No one's arguing that. No one is arguing what you're arguing. We have Lawrence Krauss in the video.
Hi, am I see I was supposed to be on there, but the timing I thought was in top 5 minutes. Did I miss it?
It was an hour ago.
Yeah, well, you said Central Standard Time, so I didn't know what it's daylight time, and so that's 10 a.m. When I plugged that in, that was 10 p.m. my time.
Oh dear.
Anyway, okay, sorry.
Well,
It's okay. We'll do it another time. Sorry.
Is okay. We can reschedule. Yeah. Well, I'll email you. I apologize. Something may have gotten crossed.
Okay, let's get the time right because I'm 2 hours later than Central Daylight Time, and
Oh, you're 2 hours late. Okay.
yeah, okay.
I'm terribly sorry.
No worries. No, sorry to interrupt you. Whatever you're doing.
No,
so,
it's my fault. This is my fault that this
no
happened.
worries. Okay.
Okay.
We'll,
I will. Again, I'm sorry about this. I will email you.
Don't
We'll
be
get
sorry.
this
These
straightened
things
out.
happen all the time because I live in a weird
Okay.
time zone. So, okay, we'll just reschedule. No worries. Take care.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Sure.
Well, that was interesting. Back to biology. Oh goodness, there are
You
33.
were talking about membranes and stuff like this. This one bozo
Yes.
in the chat, and what he's missing the point about is that evolution generates variability. It generates differences. So telling me
Yes.
that two species or two phyla even have some different molecular properties is not a contradiction of evolutionary theory. It's actually what we expect from evolutionary theory.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he's arguing, he's literally saying the differences between these groups are what are the reason that they're not related. That would be an argument for a thing. You could argue that for any organism, for any species even. You could say, "Oh, look, they don't have some feature in common." Well, yeah, that's why they're different species. So does that mean they don't share a common ancestor? No. That's not what we use to determine their common ancestry. So it's such a dumb argument. Get better. Do better, vlog. Okay.
You're asking a creationist to do better.
Well, if they did that, we wouldn't have creationists to kick around.
Yes.
Yes. Also, hybridization is not typically how new species form. Species can form through hybridization. That certainly happens. You can have like plants where like pollen from one fertilizes another one, and then like get a new species.
Didn't that
happens?
Didn't that also recently happen with the finches that Darwin studied? Didn't they find a hybridized finch there as well?
Oh yeah, there's lots of hybridized finches in the Galapagos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, it was only discovered after Darwin discovered the whole thing.
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, so yeah, but that's something Aaron talks about a lot, is how creationists envision species forming as two species becoming one, where typically it's the opposite. It's one species becoming two. But that concept of increasing diversity, right, coming from less diversity, they don't get that. That's something they can't actually like wrap their brain around. So
the weird thing is they can when it suits their narrative. So when if you talk to Kent Hovind, one of his favorite things is the Kaobab squirrel and the Abert squirrel, who are still squirrels, but there's still diversity and they can't interbreed, so they have to be of the same kind, but not of the same kind because they can't interbreed. This is where their whole idea comes crashing down, because now you have to swivel what is a kind. It just doesn't make sense. It never makes sense.
Right. Yeah, exactly right.
And just for someone in the live chat, according to Kent Hovind, those squirrels have a common ancestor, according to Kent Hovind. And we're scraping the bottom of the barrel here. I mean, we could look underneath if there's anything else, but yeah, Kent Hovind acknowledges common ancestry. Just not as far back as we do, because he doesn't want to understand.
Right.
Not saying that he doesn't understand, because he agrees with common ancestry on more than one occasion. And then
Yes.
every once in a while, he will screw up, and then people will point out, well, that is evolution. Yeah, but that's not what I said. That's not what I meant. And there we go.
Right. I mean, he agrees, and like these guys also, so they agree with common ancestry for a family. Although it also almost seems like he's trying to argue that even species don't have common ancestry, which is weird. But anyways, it's kind of like they can't decide like what they want. Like they want to say like, and my friend Colton, Mr. Wilford, he said this before. Like, if creationists could go back to immutable species, they would try. Like, I think they would try to do that if they could. You know,
that is on Ra's phylogeny challenge. Come up with two created kinds that, according to biology, are closely related, and according to the Bible, should be specially created. I think it's over 10 years old now. No one has ever taken him up on it. So maybe Flog Liveaboard wants to do it. I'd love to see that.
Yeah. So, PZ, is there anything you want to add on that before we move to the next section?
No, I'm agreeing. Yeah, it's all good.
Oh, good. In that case, adaptation. What terrible takes do they have on that? Let's find out. Quote, various species of plants and animals have adapted to different circumstances, such as climatic changes. Is this evidence of evolution? No, because plants and animals are not first non-adapted and then become adapted. They already have within their organisms the possibility of lesser or greater adaptation. The cactus did not evolve into a cactus from a different. The cactus did not evolve into a cactus from a different plant just because the climate became dry. Okay.
So they're
some
confusing
features.
plasticity with adaptation. Those are
I
completely different
guess.
things.
I guess
Okay.
so. Some features may become accentuated in severe climatic changes, but that possibility of variation was there to begin with. Did the polar bear evolve to become a cold weather animal? No, for it can survive in warmer climates too, as it does in many zoos throughout the world. But it had the capacity to adapt to cold weather better than other animals, such as the case with all animals and plants that seem particularly adapted to local conditions. In regard to adaptability, evolutionist Dobzhansky comments, quote, the English sparrow introduced in the United States from Europe has changed detectably in its new home. The average size of the birds has increased and they became differentiated into incipient local races. Close quote. What is proved by the English sparrow only in the United States? What is proved by the English sparrow in the United States becoming larger? Only that it had the potential of change already present in it, but that sparrow continues to be a sparrow. It does not change into another kind of animal and never will. Adaptability is confused with evolution. Close quote.
I want to ask about those polar bears.
I'm confused.
Yeah.
Okay.
If polar bears can live anywhere, why don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we drag them off to zoos, but they don't do that willingly. And as we're seeing right now with climate change, polar bears are struggling as the weather warms up there. So it seems to me that there are limits to this kind of physiological adaptation that are different from what we expect from evolutionary adaptation.
Yeah. Yeah, that just doesn't make any sense as an argument. Yeah, why are
No.
polar bears not running the savannah or the jungles of South America?
The Sahara Desert, that's where they belong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
And here in Minnesota, we're even seeing these subtle changes that the moose are in trouble because as the climate warms, deer are migrating farther north, and they're bringing parasites that are causing all kinds of horrible problems to the moose populations. So it's not like they have infinite latitude to just modify themselves to whatever, in a rapid physiological way. They don't.
Yeah.
So
That's
there's
so
there's
bizarre.
one thing about this adaptation thing that I'd like to point out. I forgot who it was. It was an atheist blogger. I think his name was Myers, who did a video on fish that developed some kind of antifreeze, and yeah,
I've heard vague things about this.
Yes, I mean that wasn't adaptation. That was already there in the fish. It was there, but it became something different. Yeah.
Well, yeah. The
I
ice,
wish we had that guy.
We've been able to trace the molecular history of the antifreeze in those fish, and they're derived from a truncated pancreatic enzyme. So that's a case where we know exactly the pattern of protein evolution in these animals. There's evolutionary relics in the ice fish's genome where you can see it. You can see partial copies of this pancreatic enzyme that have truncated bits that can act as a antifreeze, but then the rest of it is still there. So it's kind of hard to argue against that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and the really cool thing about that I like is that the reason that it functions in antifreeze is that threonine, alanine repeat right there is that on its own is able to gum up the works for the ice crystal formation. It just so happens that snipping that little bit off can help you prevent that process, which I think is really cool.
And that threonine, alanine was present in the pancreatic enzyme at the start of the pancreatic enzyme. So it's like a trivial thing to change.
Right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, this is super strange because, the other thing about it is it's strange that it seems to be saying, so it says, did the polar bear evolve to become a cold weather animal? Well, probably not. I would imagine that the current species of polar bear, and I don't know what it is descended also from a species that was cold weather adapted, right? I don't think the current species evolved to be cold weather adapted. So I find that very strange.
Aren't they closely related to the grizzlies, and in some places?
Oh yeah,
I think so.
Share the same habitat. So
right, so they're related. They're closely related to other bears, which also live in these like boreal forests, which are cold for part of the year. They never get super hot up there, and so this is just a species that continued to, or in their lineage, continue to adapt for colder and colder climates, whereas the others, were more for those temperate boreal forests. So yeah, that's really weird. That's a very strange argument. Also, when it says the potential of change was already present in it, what does that mean? If that's true, then isn't that an argument for common ancestry then? If you're saying everything has the potential for change, then what's your argument? What does that mean? I don't understand.
Well,
I don't know. I'm confused.
There's one more thing. I think we have to stop the series now because there's no way we can continue reading this book. You just read the quote. The English sparrow is introduced in the United States from Europe and has changed detectably in its new home. The average size of the bird has increased, and they became differentiated into incipient local racist. This book is racist. I mean,
Does that sound?
Yeah, the author of this was as bad as Charles Darwin. He's a racist. We
Of course.
have to completely discredit the book right now based on creationist claims.
Let's go burn it.
I just wanted to point that out. This is what roughly 100 years after Darwin wrote his book, and these people were still racist. Sorry, I had to bring it up.
I just think it's
one of my pet peeves.
I think it's interesting.
The whole racist thing. Yeah.
Oh, that they mention race. Yeah, and because Darwin talked about races of cabbages and horses and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's not that species weren't still called races in the late 60s.
Right. It's kind of funny because he cites a quote in which Dobzhansky is explaining how evolution works, or explaining the evolutionary history of a group of this one species, I guess. And the book is like, aha, this is a problem for evolution somehow. Not sure how, but evolution is a problem for evolution, don't you know? Oh my goodness. Oh, Eugene Koonin. And now you're bringing up that universal common ancestry. What? Eugene Koonin was talking about how the origin, or that life is not representative as a tree. Same with W4 Doolittle. You are just quoting things you have not read.
And that he doesn't understand. Yeah, because, Doolittle and Koonin, they're arguing that the problem is that there's so much horizontal gene transfer at the base of the tree. So you can't distinguish single trunks, that it's all a big gamish down there at the base. But they're still supporting the idea of common ancestry.
Yes.
I also have to point out
right.
that this same bozo has pointed to an article, Phylogenomics provides robust support for a two-domain tree of life. He hasn't read that paper.
No, he hasn't.
No, because all the paper does not suggest in any way that there are two distinct origins for life on Earth. What it's arguing is that the clustering of the trees, of the branches, suggests two broad patterns. And if you actually look at that paper, it's got some beautiful tree diagrams that are all rooted in a single common ancestor.
Yep. Exactly. Because as we were talking about before you came on, PZ, Eukarya nests within Archaea. So we are not a separate domain from the Archaeans. We are part of that. Now, what would have to happen, though, if you want to say there are still 2 or 3 domains, is you have to change Euryarchaeota, my bad. You change Euryarchaeota, which is the true Archaeans, to Archaea. But that also means you have to include Deepan, Tak, and the Asgard Archaeota with Eukarya in its own clade. So that they have to all be in a clade with us, whatever you want to name that. I don't know. But yeah, no, this dude did not read these papers. You did not read those papers, my guy. You are citing dumb arguments and papers you did not read. Keep trying. Anyway,
we've got a liar in the comments. That's kind of a shame.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Can I say, Jackson, this was perfect timing because my book borrow expired while you were talking that last bit, and I had time to renew it, so I'm back on the current page. So, and it's good that we talked about bears because we're starting to continue with evolutionist the beer, which is Dutch for the bear. So it all fits together again.
Gavin the bear? His name is Gavin the bear?
It's not Gavin the beer? Oh, that's a shame. Okay.
It's not beer.
Funny. Evolutionist, or quote, evolutionist De Beer cites another example as proof of evolution, using a picture of a woodpecker. His book states, quote, the woodpecker has 2 toes on each foot pointing backwards, enabling it to get a firm foothold on the bark of trees. Stiff tail feathers serving to prop it securely against the tree, a long stout beak with which it chisels holes in the bark, and a very long tongue with which it reaches and takes the grubs at the bottom of the holes. These adaptations must have arisen during the evolution of the woodpecker, close quote. However, what was the woodpecker doing to survive before it got its backwards toes, long beak, and tongue? If it survived for a time with a different foot, shorter beak, and tongue as so many other birds have, then why develop these other features? And if such other equipment was necessary for survival under new conditions, how did all the rest of the shorter beaked birds get by? The fact that birds of all kinds, gathering food in different ways, live side by side today and survive shows that they were made with certain characteristics and could adjust to a certain extent to changing environment. It does not at all mean they evolved for advantage. They evolved for advantage. That's a weird sentence. He kind of makes the argument for us, though. The only thing I would say is, like, you don't understand how niche differentiation works. But other than that, like, he makes the argument for us. There are birds that don't have all these features that currently exist, and there are birds that have all these features that exist. The only thing you need is natural selection to go from one to the other. What do you want? What do you want? I don't understand. Amazing. And he also has a picture here on the other side of the peppered moth, and it says it's used as a prime example of evolution. But he's just saying that it's just a moth. No evolution has actually occurred, so boring. It's just a different variety. But you know what the definition of evolution is, people in the side chat? If I remember correctly, if I can remember my Dobzhansky and my Fisher correctly, I believe the definition of evolution is a change in allele frequencies in a population over generations. Does that sound right to you guys?
Yeah, that's how I learned it.
So if that's the definition, then wouldn't you say an instance in which we had an allele frequency shift from one to the other counts as evolution? Because I think that's the definition of evolution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but in that book, God did it.
Well, God needs to make better environmental laws, apparently. So.
Yeah, that was just God getting in there and trying to help the poor moth get along in the current environment.
Yeah. Because God is omniscient, and he saw that people were using steam as a way of creating energy to power their factories, and that was having a negative effect on the moth.
Oh my God, this guy is so boring. He's making no good arguments. Free diffusion has little role. A typical eukaryote cell is about 1,000 times. Oh, you already Theo Margarita. Actually, fun fact. Let's bring in a little bit of recent news. I'm not sure if you guys have heard. A new species of Theo Margarita magnificans, was discovered in I think it was the Caribbean, it was described from the Caribbean. To be more specific, this past week, and was published, and it's like a centimeter long, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge.
It's enormous. Not only is it huge for a bacteria, like it's bonkers big for a bacterium. A centimeter is enormous, but also it has membrane-bound organelles, apparently,
which are not homologous to eukaryotic organelles, which is again what we'd expect.
Yep. Yeah. So it evolved. It's like it's defying it says, oh, that's your definition of bacteria. Watch this. Hold my beer and watch this. So it's crazy. So just
But
also
this is the consequence of physiological constraints, that if you grow above a certain size, you've got a certain membrane to volume ratio. You got to start making changes, or you cannot support yourself. You cannot produce enough energy. So,
right. Exactly. You can twist the evidence to fit evolution. My guy, you just don't understand how evolution works. You just don't know anything about biodiversity or evolution. So, the other cool thing, so a couple papers on senescence came out in this, not the issue that came out today, but the last issue of Science. And in those, and so one of them, the lead author was Beth Rink, I'm not totally sure how to, it's Reinke. And so I emailed her for the paper, and she was kind enough to send it to me, the full paper. But the other one, which was on, so that was on senescence across ectothermic tetrapods broadly, and then there was another paper in the same issue. I think it was Rita De Silva was the lead author on that one, which was about senescence specifically in turtles and testudines. And fun fact, one of the data points for that testudine paper came from the Shreveport Aquarium where I work. They actually reached out to us and got some data from us. So yeah. So
what did the aquarium do? They just sent them a sample, a tissue sample or something? Or did they actually do this?
I believe they were just sending like whatever data it was that they asked for. I haven't read the testudine paper yet, but one of the husbandry workers was telling me about how they were cited in this paper. And so I believe so. The paper, the other senescence paper, senescence broadly is about like for anyone who doesn't know, decreasing fecundity with age, and increasing mortality. And so for turtles and some other ectothermic tetrapods, it seems, not just for ectothermic tetrapods, for a bunch of organisms broadly, it seems like senescence doesn't really occur. Like, no matter how old they are, their fecundity stays relatively the same, and they don't seem to experience greater mortality at any age particular to the rest. So like Hydra is a really cool little experimental or model organism for that, because it just keeps kind of doing asexual reproduction and making more of itself, but they don't really seem to age. Or
okay, are you addressing this to me? Stop it.
I'm just saying to everybody, whoever wants to.
Yeah. Now, Nick Lane's latest book has a really interesting chapter on senescence, where he postulates that it may be a consequence of a mismatch between the enzymes in mitochondria and in the nucleus.
That's interesting.
Because he says it explains some of the differences we see within a species. That there is no longevity gene. It's just that if you inherit a mitochondrial genome and a nuclear genome that mesh nicely, that don't produce all the free radicals and nasty things that cause the breakdown of the cell, then you're likely to live longer.
That's part. I've read a little bit about that. A couple of the major hypotheses for senescence are like mutation accumulation, which is part of that. Like your body just fails to get rid of mutations and free radicals and things like that accumulate with age. And the other one is an interesting idea called antagonistic pleiotropy, which the idea broadly is that you can have an allele which benefits you while you're at your reproductive age or up to your reproductive age, but then after that it becomes harmful or deleterious. And so there's weakened selection after you've reproduced, because if something kills you when you're 80 and you're not reproducing any more than natural selection doesn't really care, right? So
Right.
these things stick around, and so yeah, you get these really interesting phenomena that show up.
Yeah, another interesting hypothesis is that it's a consequence of stem cell depletion.
Okay.
That, at birth, you've got a pool of stem cells, and you got those hard-working somatic cells that are out there getting exposed and are breaking down gradually, and they're replaced by stocks of stem cells over time. But you don't have an infinite supply, and eventually they just kind of run out. And there's been some interesting evidence for that. They've looked at some, centenarians, and once they've deceased, you take a look at their stem cell populations, and they're practically gone. So that could be. I suspect that there's about 100. There's about 100 different factors involved in this. So.
Right. There's also like a relationship between body mass and longevity, and and I believe like environmental temperature has been shown to also play like a role in it. And you're right. There's lots and lots and lots of different factors that all work together to determine your longevity as a species. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And also another interesting fact is that humans, for their size, are unusually long-lived. If you look at mass indexes and things like that, we should be dying in our 20s and 30s. So
right, and we have agriculture and medicine and good or better hygiene, all that sort of fun stuff. So yeah, absolutely. There was something I wanted to say to you, PZ, and I cannot remember what it is or was.
Anytime.
I must be senescing.
In the meantime, I can agree with something that has been said in chat. PZ is indeed a fun guy. I don't think he's 1 billion years old, though. I don't think that either, but yeah. For people who haven't seen the talks that PZ has given on evolution and creationism, do a search
and
for
spiders.
that. And spiders. Yeah, but
spiders, yes.
I missed those talks about creationism. Those were amazing, filled with jokes, a lot of fun to watch, which is how I discovered PZ.
Right.
Yeah, I'm planning some in the near future. It's just a matter of finding time. And there's so many other things I want to do videos about right now.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a fan of your videos also. I got into your stuff way back in the aughts while you were doing
oh my gosh, that was so long ago.
Well, for me it was,
Yeah,
maybe not for others, but
back when I was 40.
But like that was it's, I guess, brief side tangent here, everybody. I don't know how many of you were around or were aware of all that sort of stuff back then, but I was watching all of it as a lurker. The early aughts, when you had like the big sort of revival of like atheism and anti-theism and stuff as a result of like the Bush administration, and then we got then we our community completely dissolved or split in half over the whole, which today is just peanuts compared to what's happening in the world. But at the time, there was this whole thing like, is feminism real? What does it mean? Are women taking over? Which like is just such a funny concept. Like it's just a bad joke nowadays.
I was there. I was right there in the center of it. It was terrible. And we lost so many good people who just decided, hey, this whole atheism evolution thing is not worth getting involved in. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It split us as a community. Lots of people, lots of predominantly guys, became really popular bashing feminism and all that sort of stuff. And I'm glad I was a lurker at the time. I'm glad that I didn't have the ability to make my opinions known to everybody, because I had to go through my own soul searching through all of that, and eventually came out the other side as as not who I was when I first came in. So
Yeah, that's what's
I'll
supposed to
admit-
happen. I mean, I've changed from when I was in my 20s, and I think it's all been pretty much for the better.
Yeah, I admit that it was those videos about like that, you know, the Amazing Atheist and Armored Skeptic, all those guys did on that sort of stuff. Those were appealing to me as a kid in high school and early college. Those were appealing. They were destroying everybody with facts and logic and all that stuff. And then I saw the other side of the debate, because what I had never done up to that point was watch the debate from the opposite side. I had only ever seen the Armored Skeptic or whoever bashing them.
Or
And then-
Thunderfoot, or yeah, there's a bunch of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Jackson froze.
Oh, he's shocked at what I just said.
He was going.
Yeah,
Oh, can you
Jackson,
guys see me again?
you have to repeat. You were frozen.
I was all those guys appealed to me. Thunderfoot kind of, I feel like he kind of got out before the, or he was doing that, and then he kind of dropped off before the rest of them really kind of took off. And nowadays it's nobody, you know, is nobody in the atheist community, as far as I've seen, is still making like feminism bad videos. Are you aware of?
Yes,
Are there still out there?
are. Yes.
Oh, really? Oh,
and,
dear.
And Thunderfoot did not get out of it. He's
oh no, he's still doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh, Lord.
just look up Mythicist Milwaukee, and it's just the same thing.
I've heard. Yeah, no, I've seen some of their tweets, and it's God, it's awful.
Oh, and yes, as Peter pointed out earlier today on Twitter, David Silverman.
Yeah.
Oh God, he's another one.
Yeah, he's still around.
Oh.
Yeah, let's not repeat what I tweeted. I may or may have not used very, very strong language when it comes to this particular individual, because and I also tweeted a clip, and that's because I know at least one of the persons that they were referring to. So yeah, it's a bit close to home. It's someone that I would like to see disappear, but apparently he can't even sell insurance, so we're not going to get rid of him anytime soon.
Well, so the thing about so when I came out on the other side, I was also around when the whole Gamergate thing was happening, which also snapped up a lot of young white guys. I was around for that. That never appealed to me, though. But then eventually, once I saw the perspective from the other side, everything else kind of fell into place, and I never looked back. I've gone left ever since.
We young straight white guys got so easily sucked into that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, yes. And even to this day, the guys who did get sucked into that, they're not just like feminism bad. They're like women shouldn't have rights nowadays. They kept going. There's actually a really good video, or there's a really good channel. It's called Innuendo Studios, if you haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a video called How to Radicalize a Normie. If you haven't seen that video, highly recommend. Real good. I mean, all the stuff on his channel is real good, but that one in particular is really interesting. So anyway, let's get back to biology, because that's... Oh, I just want to add one more thing. Also, so then after we all got divided over the whole feminism thing, then we got divided over the trans thing again, which is dumb. And then Richard Dawkins jumped off on that one.
Which,
so, that's still ongoing.
Another thing that is, becoming pretty violent at times. I wish anyway, people would learn from their mistakes. Apparently, that's not happening.
Yep. All right. Quote: if different feeding habits are attributed to evolution, enabling some to survive better than others, then what would we say of the cow and the horse, both eating the same grass in the same meadow? How did one evolve with upper front teeth and the other without them? How could both exist side by side, each better suited for survival? One because it had those teeth, the other because it did not. Another instance of adaptability that is confused with evolution is that which occurred when flies were exposed to the insecticide DDT. For a while, DDT proved very effective, killing most of the flies it contacted. But some flies were able to resist DDT. They survived and reproduced offspring that were also resistant, but they were still flies. What had happened was not evolution, but flies had greater resistance, greater adaptability than DDT than others. The capacity to adapt can change appearances in living things. Of that, there is no doubt. But that change is never so large that a totally new kind is formed no matter how long a time is involved. Okay, so a couple of things. There are two concepts I want to point out. The first is called, what is it? It's where you have, it's as a result of your phylogenetics, or as a result of your phylogeny, you only have a certain set of like ways you can adapt. What is that called?
Developmental constraints?
Developmental constraints. There we go.
Yes. Okay.
So again, cows, if cows lost their upper teeth, their upper incisors, I guess, early in their development, or early in the evolution of their lineage, then they're not just going to grow them back, right?
Right.
Unless there's some reason for them to grow them back,
or some god who would give them teeth.
but also,
Sorry.
right? Yeah, there were those constraints. No, you're right. There were those constraints from their ancestry. That means they can only evolve in particular ways later. But also, they're not. I don't know if it's correct to say they're better suited than each other. There's a lot of grass. In case you haven't noticed, there's a whole lot of grass out there in the world, and more than one ungulate species at a time can survive on it. Crazy, I know.
Yeah, but then, if you go back to George Gaylord Simpson, and he did all that work on the evolution of the horse lineage, and horses are kind of inefficient right now. Cows are much more efficient grazers than horses. And horses started out as browsers, not grazers.
Right.
And then only later took advantage of all that grass that you just mentioned. So that's another constraint from their past that restricts what they're able to do now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, this is a silly argument. I don't think you were on with us at the time, but when one of the earlier chapters Peter and I read, they said, how can a giraffe and a sheep live side by side? And
yeah,
I don't even know how to like. We were like, what? They don't even eat the same food.
Yeah.
I would love
Giraffes
to
have like these long
this.
necks or something.
I would love to ask this author why God was so cruel to give an animal no front teeth and then had it eat grass. Because what was he thinking?
Well, it's just the upper incisors. They have the lower incisors and then lots of molars, but yeah, it's like I guess they kind of have to go under it and chop it and like.
Well, and they also have those phenomenal tongues. Oh man, cows are really good at that, at just ripping things up with that. It's almost prehensile tongue. Of course, giraffes, it's even more extreme.
Yes.
Yeah,
of course they're grabbing those leaves with their big old tongue and ripping off, which is also fun to see when you're at the zoo and you get to feed carrots to the giraffe and they just kind of go like whoop, whoop, right back up.
Or watching them lick their ears and stuff like that.
Right.
But
yeah,
since you mentioned zoos, have you seen my tweet from earlier today? We're probably going to be banned from zoos as well. There was an instance where they had to separate parrots because the parrots were cursing at the visitors of the zoo. They were encouraging each other to curse at the visitors.
Oh, the parrots.
Yeah.
Okay, so that story is from I think at least a few months ago because I remember seeing it. Yeah, the parrots were all telling each other to cuss at the patrons of the zoo, and so the people removed the parrots. They separated them.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, those parrots, they deserve to stay together. They should become ungovernable. Screw the system.
Yes.
Yes.
Crows too. I mean, crows are genius animals, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely.
we're going to be replaced.
Yes. The other thing about this, so the flies that adapted to DDT. So this is also this is the thing that Dapper and I talked about, because on Dapper, you're familiar with Dapper Dinosaur. Yeah, we're all in. For anybody who isn't, go check out Dapper Dinosaur if you're not familiar. Highly recommend his channel. We are reviewing a video, a lecture by this creationist named Charles Jackson. Oh,
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Good.
I know of Charles
so
Jackson.
Charles Jackson seems someone here is familiar with him.
The man with 3 degrees. Or is it 4?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he's like, I have 4 degrees. Yeah, something like that.
And most evolutionists only have 1.
Yeah. One of the things he likes to say that Dapper and I were like, come on, he's so close, he can get it. He's almost there. Is he says bacteria, we'll talk about antibiotic resistance in bacteria, and he says some bacteria already had antibiotic resistance and you just increase their frequency. Yes, but how did they get that resistance in the first place? You're almost there. Come on, you can do it. And so, of course, he never says it's mutation because that would diffuse.
I mean, obviously, God pre-programmed them. That has to be.
Well, those are his only options. Either it came about by mutations, or God pre-programmed every single possible variation into all bacteria. Those are the only options.
Mm-hmm.
It was already there, or it came into existence. You can't have, you can't have it both ways. And so this is the same thing. So with bacteria, you have, I forget what the exact term is, but you can have a point mutation in every single nucleotide in the entire genome. Because for a lot of bacteria, their genome is only like a few million base pairs long, and then you have populations that are in the billions at least. So there's going to be a point mutation for every single nucleotide in the genome somewhere. Someone's going to have it. And so it's saturated. There's a mutation saturation. And so as a result, just by random chance, someone's going to be resistant to antibiotics beforehand, just by random chance. It's probably the same with flies, I would imagine. Just by happenstance, some of them are going to have an enzyme somewhere in their body that makes them resistant to DDT. That's fine. And then the selective pressure increased the proportion that have that. So that's evolution.
Yeah.
Again.
But in the creationist mind, it's not evolution unless the mutation arises at the moment it's needed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which also not a thing that happens.
Right.
There's this thing everybody should look up called the Luria Delbrick experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Mutations do not arise as a result of selective pressures. You have mutations already, and then those are acted upon. It turns out, and again, it is. Dan did a whole video on this. Dan Stern Cardinal. So if you don't watch Creation Myths, another channel you should go check out. Because PZ, have you heard of the Peter? Do you remember what it's called? Continuous environmental tracking. Have you heard of that?
No.
No, I haven't either.
So creationists, well, they didn't make this up. They're using it again over at ICR. It's basically they're arguing that mutations arise if, fish are in some environment and then suddenly a new predator is introduced there. Well, those fish will develop mutations, and then those mutations will be selected. Continuous environmental tracking. They don't have it until they run into a selective pressure, then they mutate in response. And so Dan pointed out, no, that's been wrong for 80 years. We've known that's wrong for 80 years. Why are you still arguing this? And then Dapper and I talked about it on his show the other day. And here we are again, the Luria Delbrick experiment. If you haven't heard of it, look it up. I'll put it in the side chat so everybody can look it up together or separately.
Yeah,
Either way.
I've actually done that experiment in introductory biology years ago. We're not doing it now, but yeah, we did the Luria Delbrick. The catch with it is you have to learn about Poisson distributions and some basic statistics in order to understand it. And so we found that first or second year students weren't quite ready for that part of it, the analysis.
Okay. Oh, and I see everybody's referring to to Charles as, yes, Bad Jackson. I love it. Yes, he is Bad Jackson. So yeah, you see, Dapper and I have been we've been watching this really long video where he talks about antibiotic resistance is the thing he's supposed to be talking about, but he spends the vast majority of the video not talking about that. He talks about everything else except that.
Wait, that's typical creationist strategy. Yeah.
Make your opponent forget what the argument is.
Hashtag let's debate.
Yeah.
Hashtag let's debate the Cambrian. And if you don't know what that means, look up one of Jackson's debates about the Cambrian.
Oh,
yes.
I'm afraid to.
In which the Cambrian never came up.
Oh yes. I debated a Muslim apologist on the Cambrian explosion. His name is Finding Truth.
Mm-hmm.
He never finds it, by the way. He never finds it. But he challenged me to a debate on the Cambrian explosion, and as Peter pointed out correctly, the explosion itself never came up.
Nope.
I did my whole intro on the Cambrian explosion. I talk about it like, oh, here's all this stuff. And he goes, but where did the information come from?
Yeah.
And so the entire discussion became like, he kept kind of asking me like, does the trilobite have more information than Dickinsonia? I don't know. What is the definition of information? Oh, well, you know what I'm talking about. No, I don't. Give me the definition. And he never did. He never gave it to me.
No.
If he asked me like, or if he said, oh, it's genes. I have no idea how many genes Dickinsonia had or trilobites. I have no idea. You don't know either, So what's the point?
I wonder if he got that from Paul Nilsson. Because Paul Nilsson tried to make a quantitative argument about information in evolution, and it was totally bogus. But
for Finding Truth, it's one of his go-to things. The information thing in every single debate.
What's his name? He died. The Discovery Institute guy. He did specified complex information or whatever, specified complexity.
Dembski,
there we go. Yeah, he was also one who tried to make a whole mathematical argument for that, and it failed. Really good video on that and debunking it 10 different ways is the one that How Creationism Taught Me Real Science did, our friend Tony Reed. Have not heard from him in a while. Hope he's doing all right.
Yeah.
I really like Tony. Haven't seen anything from him in a long time.
He did start a new series. He contacted me a while ago and said, I need some artwork. And I was really hoping, and he did one episode and that was actually really good. Brilliant title. He was reading books, and the title of the show is called Read Between the Lines, which I think is still brilliant. But yeah, haven't heard from him for a while either.
Yeah, I know he was busy with a lot of stuff, but I actually, funny enough, I drove right past where he lives, because I took pictures in the city where he lives, and so I took those pictures, posted them, and then kind of kept on my merry way. And then a little while later, I get a message saying, "You didn't stop to say hi." So, which
Is
I
is
didn't know he lived
another
there at the time while I was
Louisianan?
there. Oh no, he's way west of me.
Oh.
Yeah, he's very far west of me, and so I won't be over there for quite a while.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you traveled all that distance, but you didn't swing up north to visit me.
You're way far north. Way north. We went to California. We went to Lake Tahoe to snow ski.
Okay.
And so we went, Route 66 all the way across up to Lake Tahoe, and then we went through Nevada, kind of back down, then back across. So.
Just got to get on I-35 and go straight north. It's really easy.
I mean, yeah. I'll come up. We'll I don't know, but I'll come to your university. How about that? I'll sit in on one of your classes or something.
This is why I love living in the Netherlands. No matter where you live in the Netherlands, you're always within reach of a 2-hour drive. So that's it.
Yeah. PZ, I'll tell you. Look, how about we meet in the middle? We'll meet halfway to each other. We'll do a show there. How about that?
Okay, I'm gonna be in St. Louis next month.
Wait, in the middle. Isn't that somewhere?
I'm curious now.
That's somewhere in Kentucky?
From Louisiana?
No. We're like this. That'd be like way over here, basically.
Okay. So a video live from the Ark Park or from the Creation Museum is out of the question. I'm just hoping. I mean,
look.
Yeah.
No, look.
There are things you need in life. That to me would be brilliant. PZ Myers and Jackson Wheat visit.
I know people. Look, PZ, I know people who love to road trip. We could do it. We could go to the Ark Park or the Creation Museum and road trip it. Right? We could do a live show, walk around. That'd be lit.
Oh, yeah, get thrown out by Ken Ham.
Yeah, beat one. I just wasn't going to mention it.
Even better. That would be the best part,
As long as you pretend to be creationist, you're not going to be thrown out when you're live streaming. If they figure out that you're an atheist live streaming, you're out. You'll get a police escort.
They might recognize him.
Ken Ham knows who I am.
Yeah,
so
probably.
He would figure it out. Yeah.
Kentucky is a ways from what's it in Williamsburg, isn't it?
Something like that.
Yeah, close to Williamsburg.
Shreveport. I'm trying to think. Like, how far is?
Although he did do the entire walk.
That's 17 hours.
13 hours? Oh, okay.
17. That's a 17-hour drive.
Oh, let me see.
Wait, hold on a second. That's the wrong Williamsburg. Hold on. That's William. Okay, why? That's my bad. That was the wrong Williamsburg.
It's
that's
right
an 11-hour
near
drive.
Cincinnati.
11 hours. Sorry.
I'm looking at my map here, and it says, oh, it's
11
13
hours. Is still a bit of a drive.
Yeah, 13 hours for me.
So yeah, we'd be driving quite a ways for that, but it'd be fun.
Yeah, it would be.
It'd be fun.
And as I said, if he's there, he did the whole walkthrough with Bill Nye. I'd love to see him walk through the whole Ark thing or the Creation Museum with PZ. That would just make my day.
Ooh,
no, PZ would just be like.
I guarantee you that video is not going to show up on the AIG channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
I love that Aaron Raw is in that video. He's just like over Bill Nye's shoulder. I thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, we ought to get a whole crew just to shoot, with Aaron Raw.
To be fair, the funniest part of that video to me was the end, where all the kids gathered around Bill Nye and he was talking to them and he was explaining to them how to make the best selfies and how to hold. And Ken Ham is standing there and the kids don't pay any attention to him. And you can see how
that's the thing.
Incredibly annoyed he is by that. That to me was just the best part.
Ken Ham is not personable.
No,
Like,
No.
he's not personable at all. The only reason I think that, like, Bill Nye is not a great debater. He did okay, but the only reason I feel like he did okay was Ken Ham is just that bad.
Yeah.
Right? Like, by comparison, Ken Ham is just, he's not personable. He's evidently not nice to his employees. Like, you see the way they interact.
No.
I'm
I
friends.
get,
I'm
like,
friends with
big-
one of his ex-employees, and I intend to at some point contact her and see if I can have her on the show. She has really, really bad experiences from her time at Ken Ham's ministry, and she's not the only
and
one.
Now he's
Yeah.
right. And now he's building these dorms, and he's going to be importing student volunteers to work there and live on the grounds in these dorms. It sounds like a hellish circumstance to me,
Mhm.
but I'm sure we'll get some good, juicy stories out of it.
Oh yeah, like yeah, I'm sure the wall monitors will have all sorts of fun stories coming out of there.
Yeah, he's
Because of course, I mean, wasn't that one of the reasons the woman got fired, right? Because like, one of the male coworkers just gave her a ride home.
Yes,
They
because
didn't do anything. He just
because
gave her a ride home.
because
got
she was
fired over
too
it.
sick to walk.
Yeah.
Want to add
Right.
that in there? She was incredibly sick. Still went to work, and then just couldn't
Mhm.
get back home because she was done. She had spent all her energy, and then the coworker offered her a ride, and that's how she got in trouble.
Mhm.
I don't think initially she was fired over that, but there was a lot of problems. I think she quit herself. Not entirely sure of that entire story.
Mhm.
Fun fact.
Yeah, but Ken's
She got
going to learn a
harassed
few things because he's
as
going to be trying to
a re-
corral teenagers and young 20s people. And, I've forgotten what it's like since then. But they tend to be horny and troublesome. And I don't think it's going to go well for him.
Mhm.
I can't disagree with that analysis.
Yeah.
Well,
I should have that like as
that particular-
my bio, horny and troublesome.
the particular woman that we just
Or my
talked
band
about,
name.
she's no longer a Christian. She identifies as I think as a non-believer and is part of the LGBTQ community right now. So well done, Ken
Ooh.
Ham. That's probably
Oh, yeah.
at least in part on you, the atheist part. The other thing, probably up to God. But
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. So,
Mhm.
gents, PZ, what's going on over on your area?
Over in my area is the spiders are going crazy. It is that time of year. I have got multiple egg sacs right here in front of me. I mean, I should show you these. These are gorgeous.
Nice.
Got a couple of vials full of egg sacs here. I got more in the lab,
Yeah.
and they're all getting ready to hatch out. And then this poor 4-limbed monkey and descendant has got to deal with all of these spiders all at once. I get in there and start opening vials and with paintbrushes everywhere, and I need more limbs and more eyes. All these things would be really handy.
Oh my goodness. Sounds good. We look forward to all of your videos about spiders and the like. And Peter, what's going on over on your end?
I'm still waiting for it. It's hard to get people on if you're so nitpicky as I am, because I want to have decent conversations, no dumpster fires. But in the meantime, I'm still involved in several other things. So this Saturday, we are going to do 2 shows on Ross channel again. First, reading the Bible. And then we're going to go to the Book of Mormon. And for people who haven't watched that yet, The Book of Mormon, I think there are 4 comedians part of the panel on that show. So reading out the Book of Mormon in, I think there was a New York dialect, there's a Southern dialect, which just makes it all the more fun and just makes everything fall into place. And I mean, reading the Bible, someone's got to cut all of that, and then when we've done reading the entire Bible, put out the Bible as an audio book read by Aaron Ra. I still think that would be one of the best things ever.
Yeah.
He does have the gravitas to be God, certainly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, we have a super chat. We have a super chat. Peter, can you highlight that one, please?
I can.
Yes, thank you. Which says, but PZ has never seen a squid give birth to a non-squid in real time.
That's because squid don't give birth to non-squid. Isn't that easy?
That doesn't sound right. I'm pretty sure you're making that up. Where did you guys start talking about squids?
I don't know. I just came up.
Interesting. No, I was like, I'm looking at our side chat. Creation Myths is live right now talking to Dr. Fuzzrana about junk DNA. I'm sure that's fun.
I once debated
I've had
that
a couple
guy.
of chats with. Yeah, I debated him on Modern Day. He's pretty nice. I like him. Nice guy.
Oh, he's nice, but he's wrong. Just flamingly wrong.
Well, yes. Yeah, that's true. That's true. He did actually send me his book, Dinosaur Blood and the Age of the Earth, which I did use. I referenced it while doing my video for Apologia on, creationists are always talking about how, like, dinosaur soft tissue proves the Earth is young. Well, Rana wrote a whole book about how that's not the case. And so I did actually reference that. It's a pretty good book. Recommend. Sorry, I just know PZ loves squids. Do you love squids?
It is true. Yep.
Oh, good. There we go.
Anything with 8 or more legs is great.
Oh. Yeah.
Jackson froze again.
Jackson froze again. It always happens when we come up to the 2-hour mark. Then.
So someone else or Smitty put, I'd rather R and Raw read Origin of Species. That would also be really cool. I would definitely listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
R and Raw also read The Happy Atheist. And that's the audiobook is read by Aaron.
Oh, that's awesome. And if you guys haven't bought that, buy PZ's book.
You can't get the book anymore. It's out of print, but you can get the audiobook still.
Oh, well, get the audiobook. Even gooder. Oh, my God. Oh, no. No, we're not dealing with him today. Okay, we're cutting it off. There's
I don't even have to look at the chat and know who you're talking about. I don't even have to look.
Nope, we're not dealing with him today. We're leaving. All right, because it's time. We're at the 2-hour mark. On this channel, I promise I will get back to my Ancestors Tale series. I promise I'll get back to it. As of right now, my computer's in the shop. I'm not using my normal computer because it's old and having some parts I need to get put in it. So at a time when computers are extremely expensive right now, when new computers are extremely expensive. So of course, why not?
Perfect timing.
I know, the best, right? So I will get back to working on that once I get my computer back, which should be sometime next week. Still not telling you guys what the twist is. I know, PZ, you were here last time. I didn't tell you what the twist was. Still don't get to know. You'll have to wait for the video to come out.
Oh, you're going to force me to watch a video?
I know. I got to get that extra penny. I got to get it, PZ.
Yeah.
I need the pennies. How else will I buy gumballs?
That's about what YouTube is worth, is pennies. I sometimes get dollars, but not much more.
So yeah, I'll get back on that once I get my computer back. That's about it. We'll be back to reading the book next week. We'll be on chapter 6. So
Oh,
yay. Chapter 6. And of course, you're welcome to join us if you want, PZ. Always
Sure.
happy to have you.
yeah. And I'm going to be back to read. I've got a bunch of books I've been reading. I read Transformer, and the latest
Nice.
one I'm really excited about is Bitch by Lucy Cook. I highly
That's right.
recommend
You were
that.
telling us about that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good books out there right now. Maybe we should talk about those instead of these crappy creationist things.
So I've actually been reading. I can't reach it. It's out of reach. I've been reading The Big Picture by Sean Carroll. It's pretty good. It's about, well, the first section. It's kind of it's not even really like, I got it because I thought it was a physics book, kind of like A Brief History of Time is just like a physics book, or popularizing physics. But The Big Picture is more of a defense of naturalism, of like philosophical naturalism.
Mhm.
So the first section is about like ontology, and epistemology, or when the second section is about epistemology. And so then he also gets into like the evolution of the universe from the Big Bang to today and all that sort of stuff. So it's good. I like it. He's a very good
Yeah.
writer.
Oh yeah.
I enjoy his
Yeah,
stuff.
he's also a good speaker. I've heard him give talks along those lines in the past. So
Yes, if you guys haven't seen it, watch his debate with William Lane Craig.
oh
There are a few debates which are just beat downs, but that's one of them, at least that I've seen. So you've seen that, right, Pete or
yeah.
PZ?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that debate's a beatdown. My favorite part of that was when it was his very last rebuttal, because he gets up and he says, "Well, nothing I said was addressed, so I'm going to talk about this other thing now." So, and then he goes off. So, yeah, it's an enjoyable book. Of course, he gives cool lectures and all sorts of stuff, so highly recommend this stuff. So, anyways, thank you guys for coming. Thank you for coming, PZ. Thank you for hosting and being a host, Peter. Thank you, everybody in the side chat, for watching. And we will see you all next time.